Jesus once healed 10 men with a terrible skin disease called leprosy. Back then, people with leprosy had to live far away from everyone else because it was contagious. These 10 men couldn't hug their families or go to work. When they saw Jesus walking by, they shouted from a distance, asking for help. Jesus told them to go show themselves to the priests, which was the rule for checking if someone was healed. As they walked away, something amazing happened. Their skin became completely clean and healthy again. But here's the shocking part. Only one man came back to thank Jesus. Just 1 out of 10. That man was a Samaritan, someone most people looked down on. Jesus was surprised too, asking where the other 9 were. Sometimes the people we least expect show the most gratitude. Jesus stood by the Sea of Galilee, watching his disciples struggle all night catching 0 fish. Their nets came up empty every single time. When morning broke, Jesus called out from the shore, telling them to throw their nets on the right side of the boat. The exhausted fishermen probably thought this stranger was crazy, but Peter decided to trust him anyway. The moment their net hit the water, it filled with so many fish they couldn't even pull it back into the boat. The net was bursting at the seams with the biggest catch they'd ever seen. Sometimes the best miracles happen when we listen to unexpected advice. Jesus once healed a man who couldn't walk by simply saying, "Your sins are forgiven, stand up and walk." The paralyzed man immediately jumped up, picked up his mat, and walked home dancing with joy. Everyone watching was absolutely amazed and praised God for this incredible miracle. But some religious leaders called Pharisees got upset and complained because they didn't believe Jesus had special powers. Jesus showed them that love and kindness are more important than rules. The beautiful lesson here is that we should always choose to help others with love instead of finding reasons to complain about good deeds. Jesus once told his disciples to feed 5,000 hungry people with just 5 loaves and 2 fish. The disciples panicked, thinking it was impossible. But Jesus took the small meal, blessed it, and started breaking the bread. Miraculously, the food kept multiplying in their hands. Everyone ate until they were full, and 12 baskets of leftovers remained. The real twist? The food came from a young boy who willingly shared his lunch. Sometimes the smallest acts of generosity create the biggest miracles. Jesus once healed a man who couldn't walk for 38 years with just 3 words. The paralyzed man lay by the pool of Bethesda, waiting for someone to help him into the healing waters. But crowds always pushed ahead of him. When Jesus saw him, he didn't ask about his faith or demand payment. He simply said, "Get up, take your mat, and walk." Instantly, strength flowed through lifeless legs. The man jumped up, grabbed his sleeping mat, and danced through the streets. Sometimes the miracle you've been waiting for isn't in the place you expected, but in the person standing right beside you. Jesus turned water into the finest wine at a wedding. But here's what most people miss about this miracle. The servants knew exactly what happened because they filled those jars with plain water themselves. Imagine being the one pouring water and watching guests praise the incredible wine. The twist isn't just that Jesus performed his first miracle. It's that he chose servants as his first witnesses. These weren't important people or religious leaders, just regular workers doing their job. Jesus always picks the unexpected ones to see his power first. When you feel overlooked or unimportant, remember that God often reveals his greatest works to those the world considers ordinary. The Roman centurion had more faith than anyone Jesus had ever met, and he wasn't even Jewish. This powerful military commander approached Jesus with a problem. His servant was dying, and he believed Jesus could heal him without even showing up. Here's the crazy part. When Jesus offered to come to his house, the centurion said no. He told Jesus, "I'm not worthy to have you in my home. Just say the word from here and my servant will be healed." The centurion understood authority because he commanded soldiers. He knew that Jesus had authority over sickness itself. Jesus was amazed and told everyone around him that this outsider had greater faith than anyone in Israel. Sometimes the people we least expect teach us the most about believing in God's power. Jesus walked on water like it was solid ground. But here's what most people miss about this miracle. Peter actually succeeded at first. When Jesus called him out of the boat, Peter took those impossible steps across the waves. But the moment he looked at the storm instead of Jesus, he started sinking. The real lesson isn't about walking on water. It's about where you focus your attention. When Peter kept his eyes on Jesus, the impossible became possible. The second he focused on his problems, fear took over. This applies to everything in your life. Are you looking at your challenges or at the one who can help you overcome them? Next time you face something scary, remember Peter's first steps, not his sinking moment. Jesus once fed 5,000 people with just 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish. Here's the mind-blowing part that most people miss. When the disciples saw the massive crowd, they panicked and told Jesus to send everyone away because they didn't have enough food. But Jesus didn't see a problem. He saw an opportunity to teach about abundance. He took that tiny lunch from a little boy, blessed it, and somehow it multiplied endlessly. Everyone ate until they were completely full, and there were 12 baskets of leftovers. The real miracle wasn't just the food multiplication. It was showing that when we share what little we have with others, God can turn it into something extraordinary. Next time you think you don't have enough to help someone, remember this story. Jesus once met a woman at a well who felt completely forgotten by everyone. She came alone at noon to avoid judgmental stares from her neighbors, but Jesus saw her heart differently. He asked her for water, which shocked her because most people avoided her completely. Then Jesus revealed something incredible about her past that only God could know. This wasn't to shame her, but to show divine love. The woman dropped her water jar and ran to tell everyone about this amazing man who knew everything about her, yet still loved her. Her excitement was so contagious that the whole town came to meet Jesus. Free Bible lesson that will blow your mind. Jesus once faced a storm so violent his own disciples thought they were going to die. Picture this. Waves crashing over their tiny boat like giant water monsters, wind howling like a beast, and grown fishermen crying out in terror. But Jesus was sleeping peacefully in the corner like nothing was happening. When they finally woke him up, screaming that they were all about to drown, Jesus simply stood up and told the storm to stop. Instantly, the chaos became complete silence. The disciples were more afraid of Jesus than they were of the storm. Sometimes the very thing we think will destroy us is actually our greatest opportunity to witness true power. Jesus once met a woman who had been bleeding for 12 long years. She had spent all her money on doctors, but nobody could help her. She felt hopeless and alone. But when she heard Jesus was coming to town, something stirred in her heart. She thought, if I can just touch the edge of his robe, I'll be healed. So she pushed through the crowded street, reached out her trembling hand, and barely touched his cloak. Instantly, she felt strength flow through her body. Jesus stopped and asked, "Who touched me?" The woman fell at his feet, scared but grateful. Jesus smiled gently and said, "Your faith has made you whole." Sometimes the smallest act of faith creates the biggest miracle. Free miracle happened when a little boy brought just 5 loaves and 2 fish to feed thousands of hungry people. Everyone thought it was impossible, but Jesus took that tiny lunch and started breaking it into pieces. The food kept multiplying in his hands like magic blocks appearing from nowhere. 5,000 people ate until they were completely full, and there were still 12 baskets of leftovers. The boy learned that God can do incredible things with whatever we offer, no matter how small it seems. Sometimes the smallest gifts create the biggest miracles when we share them with others. Miracles happen when you least expect them, and Jesus proved this when a paralyzed man's friends literally tore through a roof to reach him. Picture this: 4 friends carrying their buddy on a mat, but the house is packed wall to wall. Most people would give up, but these friends climbed onto the roof, removed tiles, and lowered their friend down right in front of Jesus. The crowd gasped as Jesus looked up and said, "Your sins are forgiven. Pick up your mat and walk." Instantly, the man stood up, grabbed his mat, and walked out, praising God. Sometimes the greatest miracles require the greatest faith from those who love us most. Jesus once met a man who lived alone in a graveyard, screaming day and night because evil spirits tormented him. Nobody could help him, and chains couldn't hold him. When Jesus arrived, the demons begged him not to destroy them. Instead, Jesus sent them into a nearby herd of pigs, who immediately ran off a cliff into the sea. The man was instantly free, sitting peacefully and talking normally. The townspeople were amazed but scared, asking Jesus to leave. However, the healed man wanted to follow Jesus everywhere. But Jesus told him something beautiful. "Go home and tell everyone what God did for you." Sometimes the greatest mission isn't following Jesus to distant places, but sharing his love right where you are.